Music is an art form, the same way that a novelist's art form is words, or a painter's is with a paintbrush and some different colors. So music is handled with musical instruments, with thought, also with words, kind of a commingling of many different devices in order to truly communicate something in a language that we as a culture don't fully understand or completely understand. Now, there have been many reports and many feelings that most of the time whenever I speak about music on this channel, it's done in a very negative light. Done in a way that is really discouraging to artists as opposed to encouraging. When in reality, most of the messages throughout the different videos or series that I aim to bring to you guys is to be a little bit encouraging while also showcasing some of the pitfalls, really aiming to make you unique and push you to go a little bit further and not just aim for whatever's mainstream. This is a little bit different. This is me directly saying to you that if music is your dream, if it's your art form of choice, if it's something that you love, don't give up on that dream simply because of the shark-infested waters that seem to be presented in front of you. Here in 2015, and as we're rapidly approaching 2016, it seems as though shark-infested waters is a perfect metaphor for the music scene. You have to worry about so many different things that perhaps in decades past were not as present, or were, but in a bit of a different way. It seemed that decades ago, in order for you to secure a deal, it required a little bit more than it did today. Now, with the advent of professional tools that are available at musicians' fingertips via the internet and the computing world, it becomes a little bit easier to self-produce and to market yourself on the online market. But it also can make it seem quite frustrating based around the idea that anybody and everybody can do it. Meaning that if you're doing it, chances are somebody else is too. Perhaps somebody that's in a style exactly the same as you, or perhaps somebody who's a little bit more of a wizard on the tools, or perhaps a little bit better at the guitar. It's no longer just as simple as which band is better or which band speaks to this crowd. But in reality, it kind of still is. If you make music that moves people, music that actually seems to touch them in ways that they weren't able to feel prior to listening to the song, then as an artist you've actually accomplished your goal. You've accomplished your feat, and done so with flying colors. This music moves people in a language that, as I said, as a culture, we don't fully get. We don't understand why it is that certain things sound good to us, while other things don't sound as good. And why somebody else might be able to really enjoy the thing that we don't. Something that on this channel seems to be a little bit over-dramatized, but it's a character. It's an opinion. And people that take it way too seriously are honestly part of the problem. And that's on both sides, not just defending or combating against some of the bands or some of the groups or styles that were listed and talked about. If music is your dream and it's your artistry of choice, this is something that you should always put your best foot forward on. Now, if it's something where you can honestly, potentially go further with it, then don't stop. Even though the online marketplace might seem swamped, even though it seems like all of the major record labels are looking for a certain thing or a certain this, a certain that, a certain look, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be able to fulfill what they need. And in reality, is it all about fulfilling what they need? Is it something where your goal in life is to be signed to a label and have them release your music? Or is it something where you would like to improve and release it yourself? Build a loyal, devoted fan base that might be a little bit smaller, but will follow you wherever you go, and who speaks about how your music has changed their lives and changed their perspective on things. It could be a brilliant podium, a soapbox. It can be a way in which your message gets out to the world in song form. But it also can be a way to move people that are feeling and experiencing different emotions, whether it be love or a lacking of love. Maybe it's one for financial turmoil, or one that's for somebody who just wants to be lazy during a day and maybe smoke a little something. Either way, music moves so many different people, and there are so many different ways to get your music out there. Building your audience will seem like the most challenging of devices. If you're more focused about getting signed and trying to live the famous life of a popular rock star, then you're kind of missing one of the keynote points. You do have to start small. That was something that was mentioned in the video why I think most local bands fail. They tend to feel like their goal is a little bit too high, or their head's a little bit too far up their own ass, or they're just a follower as opposed to a leader. What about all those things that you sort of dibble and dabble with that sound really unique, or things that don't necessarily seem to fit the mold of what a band would be? Perhaps that sort of scatterbrain logic would really be appreciated by somebody. Maybe it's something that's the perfect descriptor of how they feel inside their own head. Either that, or who's to say that you can't have multiple projects to kind of funnel these different things. It's also something that's very free form. You don't necessarily have to haphazard yourself with a lot of important due dates or goal dates, unless, of course, you're using tools for fan funding. But it is something where the product should be purely something of your own being, something of your own creation. You and your friends, your bandmates, or just you by yourself. And most importantly, while it is important to have your music out there to the world, and while this channel is going to be aiming to try to do that a little bit more in the coming months, and definitely in the coming year, it's something where you are your best marketplace. What you're able to tell the people, and whenever they get themselves attached with your music, is something that certainly helps. Because people don't necessarily just stay silent about music. It's something that will spread. It may not seem like it's spreading as fast. It's not a wildfire concept anymore, unless you happen to get truly lucky. But it's something where a little bit of humility and a little bit of appreciation do go a long way. It's just like any other profession. It's just like any other piece of art. It may not necessarily be what captivates individuals at the time of its release, either that or the time of its creation. It may be something that takes time. It may be something where the rest of the musical world has to catch up a little bit. I remember being in high school, and this was quite a while ago, for those of you who are wondering about my age. And I remember being, whenever I started as a freshman, the only metalhead basically in the entirety of my school. Now, I went to a private school, so the population of this school was a little smaller than perhaps what you're used to. So about 400 people. Let's say that that was accurate. Being still the only metalhead among 400 was crazy during my freshman year. Either that, or perhaps there were others that I didn't know about, but by and large, whenever there came days where we dressed as we wished, considering private schools are stupid and require uniforms, I was the only one that I noticed that had a band t-shirt on that was of the heavy metal variety. But by the time I left school, 4 years later as a senior, there were multiple metalheads in that school. And I was talking with kids that were literally on every level, from freshman all the way up to senior, about the music. It was something where just that little word of mouth did pique a little bit of curiosity. Now mind you, it was also at the latter part of the 90s, first part of the 2000s, so metal was making a little bit of a comeback through nu metal. So what kind of was going on around me was also helping out just a little bit. But even still, these weren't kids that were necessarily talking about Limp Bizkit or talking about Korn. There was a group of people that were talking about Iced Earth, Jag Panzer, In Flames, bands of that variety. There was expansion. I was seeing Iron Maiden t-shirts, Metallica shirts, but at the same time, if I saw some of these folks in their downtime, you would see something a little more extreme, such as a Celtic Frost t-shirt. It was something where the time definitely helped to increase the love and bring the message full circle. Don't be discouraged if you're a musician. Don't be discouraged if right around your first part or corner or EP, your first songs are not necessarily ones that propel you to instant stardom. This is your artistry. This is a little piece of you that you're giving to the world. Maybe it's something that the whole entire world may not necessarily be able to appreciate. It might not be something that they all love, or it might not be something that speaks to each and every one of them. But that's not who it should technically always be about. Sometimes you have to do these things. Sometimes you have to make this music, make this craft, this art, 100% for you. Because if it's not something that's being done at any percent for you, then what are you really doing? Who are you really trying to appease? And what are you really trying to accomplish? Do you think that a couple years ago that Adele really fit the mold of the traditional pop star of the time? She really didn't. Whenever 21 came out, it was an album that a lot of people probably thought would do okay considering she had a good voice. Nobody expected it to sell more than 20 million copies worldwide and essentially show that something that's a little bit new, a little bit different, a new take on an old idea, could easily be a hit that was universally accepted by most of the world. Something that music fans of all varieties was going to just fall in love with. Do you think necessarily that the grunge scene started off as instant fan favorites? It was around for years prior to its fanfare, and it took a hero in order for that to happen. And not necessarily the hero that everybody really thinks about. It took a guy like Andy Wood. Same thing could be true with metal. Did Metallica instantly have fame and fanfare? There's a couple supporting acts that helped them along the way. And thrash metal was something that was rising to the top of the scene. It's that way with anything. You can't necessarily predict. You just need to create. Create something new. Something unique. Something that feels a bit out of the ordinary. Don't be drawn away by something that sounds completely crazy. And finally, and this is looking myself right in the face, don't always be dissuaded by people that maybe negatively critique your work. Negative critique is just as good as positive critique. Principally because it's still getting the name out there. Just because somebody says that an album is bad doesn't mean that it's going to immediately turn the flock that you've already developed as fans away from you. Those people instead will probably do the opposite and defend you. And they'll still tell their friends. In fact, they may be more inclined to. And plus, the more ears that your music potentially hears, the more that actually those words from that reviewer could be proven wrong. There are plenty of albums reviewed in magazines that are accepted by millions of people, such as Rolling Stone, that just really fall flat and feel as though they're just reviewing things a certain way to get a paycheck. So don't let reviewers dissuade you. There have been terrific albums that have been given horrible scores that have then gone on to be legendary pieces of music. Those reviews, of course, are then amended in order to kind of mold with those thoughts. Reviewing may seem like a very wishy-washy industry, but that's the reason why I like to be as direct as humanly possible. No wishy-wash. Maybe a little bit of further knowledge, but no wishy-wash. Don't give up on your dream. Don't give up on music. Don't give up on your artistry. If maybe you're not good enough to be the guitar player of your band, find someone who is a good one. Maybe it's your voice that is actually your vehicle. Perhaps you should be the bassist, the drummer, or perhaps some of the talents that you had whenever you were in a band in grade school, such as being a flautist, a clarinet player, maybe playing the cymbals, whatever it may be. It's something that could actually fit in just about any mold of music, and something that's well respected. Finally, and most importantly, you're not going to become a millionaire overnight being in a rock band, being in a metal band, or even being a pop singer. This isn't something that should 100% be about the lucrative possibilities. If it's pure and about the music, then you should go to sleep at night feeling pretty good about yourself. Money might be tight, all that stuff might suck. And yeah, touring can be a grind. Doing a lot of different things that are involved with this hobby, this career path, are going to be a total grind and probably suck a lot of ass. But that passion, that overwhelming passion that breathes within you, if that fire continues to stay lit and burns with a fiery passion of 1,000 suns, as they say, all of that will suck, but won't matter. Because the purity of your creation, the love of your creation, the joy of creating, just like the joy of painting with Bob Ross, it will result in your happy little songs being your gift. Your gift not only to the world, to those people who opt to listen to them, and end up really being touched by them, but your gift to yourself. Don't give up. People will believe in you, and if they don't, believe in yourself.